Today's sermon is from Fundamentals of Unicult. We are going to be talking about delusion versus reality. And if you've been following my journey on TikTok, you'll know that a lot of people have called me schizophrenic. A lot of people have called me delusional. A lot of people have called me sick and ill, all for believing things that they don't understand. I'm not harming anyone. And because people don't understand my reality, my perception of the world, they call it delusion. And that's really what I want to talk about. Is first we have to break down our understanding of what these words mean. So just think for a minute in your own mind, what does the word delusional mean to you? And I think that when you sit down and you think about it, you realize that your definition is based on social expectation. Most people's definition is based on social expectation. Some people believe that if someone is delusional, that they're interacting with a world that is beyond the physical world. And if something, a lot of people subscribe to 3D science as their religion. Science is their religion. They think anything beyond the third dimensional provable reality is not real and is not scientific. And unfortunately, that's untrue. And I think that most people who follow science farther than just an ideology, just from like a badge of like, well, I believe in science, not to disparage science, but there's a faction of people whose consciousness is limited by the concept of science and who don't necessarily follow through with all the aspects of science that could potentially lead them to a greater awareness. When you start to understand how much of our reality is unseen, you can get into quantum physics, quantum mechanics, you can get into the dark matter and the dark energy of the universe. We can just talk about the ability of our emotions to govern our bodies, to govern our energy, to give us the motivation to do different things. There's all kinds of things in the world that are not necessarily stemming from the physical reality. Some people would say emotions stem from the physical reality. But the fact that so much of our world, so much of our conscious world is unseen and is not directly related to the physical experience, I think is enough to start to open your mind, hopefully, to the idea that third dimensional reality, while very important and while very essential to acknowledge and explore, is not the limitation of reality. So if you're someone who thinks delusion is someone who is interacting with an unseen aspect of reality, I'm sorry, but that's a very limited viewpoint. And if you're someone who thinks that delusion is someone, you have to ask yourself, what do you feel like the word delusion means? If you call someone delusional, they're maybe believing in a reality that you don't see or you don't comprehend. And when you start to break it down and you start to understand where the word delusional is used, it's usually a value judgment. So when someone says that you're delusional, they think that your ideas and your thoughts either A, don't have value, or B, are scary to them. They don't understand them, and so they're afraid. They don't want to know. They don't have that experience of understanding what you're talking about, and so they shut down and they say that's delusional. Sometimes, people will have delusional beliefs that are about their own self, right? So if you, and this is a tough thing to hear, this is a tough pill to swallow, but if you're someone who is beautiful, everyone's beautiful, and you're like, I'm ugly, I'm terrible, I'm ugly, I have no value because my physical appearance is just ugly, and you just tell yourself that over and over and over again, that's delusional because you're a beautiful incarnation of energy into a physical form, right? But when we say delusional, we have to understand like what we're talking about. So you can create that reality by speaking it. If you're constantly like, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, people around you, that's going to shift reality, and people are going to be like, yeah, maybe you could be prettier, like you're going to attract lower vibrational people who reflect your reality to you. If you're like, I'm gorgeous, I'm beautiful, I'm a shining example of what it means to be a human embodied, like a spirit embodied in a human body, and this is amazing, I'm literally incarnated in a physical form, isn't that incredible? I can literally pick up energy condensed into objects and like feel it and like drink coffee and have it affect my overall physical body, and it's beautiful. My experience is beautiful. My hands work, my feet work, like my eyes see. It's beautiful. And if you're disabled in one of those ways, you have a lot of other ways that's beautiful. So it's a unique incarnation. So when we're talking about delusion, I find it very useful to understand that delusion is a value judgment based on someone else's limited version of reality. And the way that we in Unicult use the word delusional is more aligned with the idea of something that is harmful. So when I say someone is delusional, which I rarely say because we're creating our own reality, but if I were to say that someone was delusional, it would be because they have a belief which is harmful to another person. This is one of my, switched up words. This is a version of reality. This is a new definition that I've created. Okay, that delusion is a belief which is harmful. I encourage you to take on that definition as well. And so when someone calls you delusional, you can say, am I harming anyone? Am I harming myself? By thinking, oh, I'm so ugly. Okay, maybe that's delusional. You can think, am I harming someone else because I think, that I'm the best and everyone else sucks? That's delusional because you're harming. You're at the root of it is harm. So we have to think about our definition of delusion. What does it mean when we talk about it? From the book, delusion, the word delusion, is a fear-based value judgment from one person to another. For example, if someone says, I'm going to quit my job and follow my passion and trust that the universe will provide for me, another person is likely to say, that's delusional. So if you say, you know what, I'm just going to trust the universe to provide for me, I'm going to quit my job, some people will say, that's delusional. What they mean is, actually, that's scary to me, and that's unlikely. But it's not delusional because they believe that quitting your job is outside of what is possible. This is based on their own personal values and expectations of reality. They likely value stability and fitting in, while they fear big risks. By saying that's delusional to the first person, they are simply showing their own fears, values, and judgments. The strangest thing about this value judgment is that plenty of people have quit their jobs, followed their passions, and they've gotten by just fine. So it's not delusional, it's possible, right? Maybe it's unlikely, or maybe this person thinks it's unlikely, but it's not delusional because many people have done it before. When we think with fear, we do not see the potential that could exist for any individual or community. Our fear is a limitation. Another example is to imagine a strange person who believes they are going to change the world with a new idea that no one has ever heard of before. They may walk around with their clothes messy or their hair standing up on end, and everyone might whisper to one another that they're delusional, that this reality is delusional. That is, of course, until the dreamer creates what they have envisioned. And then suddenly, people all around them proclaim their greatness. Right? So people cannot hold space for things that are outside of social convention because they are afraid. Once you create something solid and it gets accepted by social convention, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, I always knew they were a genius. I always knew this was the best idea. They didn't. It's really hard for people who are outside of social convention, if you haven't noticed. We can support the people who have revolutionary changes to offer the world rather than shunning them. By shunning them, we make things so much harder for them to accomplish anything. They must overcome every possible obstacle to prove society wrong. Imagine the innovation and advancement we could make by listening to people who don't fit into degree programs, don't qualify for funding, and who have issues communicating in conventional ways. Just because someone doesn't fit into the box that society creates and that society deems as acceptable does not discredit them as a human, and it does not discredit them as having potentially revolutionary and beneficial ideas. Delusional as used by modern society doesn't mean impossible. It means the person saying it is scared or afraid. So when we're talking about delusion, and I think this is something that we don't cover in the book that I want to cover in our sermon, is a lot of people talking about the idea that your own energy as a person, your personal reality. So if you follow Unicult, you understand that our reality is broken down into several different aspects. We have personal reality, which is your own understanding of the world. We have physical reality, which is the physical reality that we all are subject to. We have spiritual reality, which is the spiritual reality that we all are subject to. There are spiritual laws just as there are laws of physics. And there is social reality. So that's the idea. Yes, I did write this book. Social reality is the idea that all people, or at least two or more people, believing in something makes that reality true. Like money. The idea of money is a social reality. So when you think about all these different levels of reality, which ones do society value? Society almost only validates social reality and physical reality. The individual reality is forgotten. And that actually is very dangerous because it makes us much more likely as a collective to be brainwashed. Think about the fact that if we look at the 60s and look at how all of the time spent that people have spent really learning about who they are, and it's none of that information is coming from within themselves. Think about your own journey of learning about who you are. How did you find out? I found out by reading magazines and reading books and listening to other people. And only when that led me to an unsustainable, super depressed path, because no one can tell you who you are. And I was trusting other people, I was trusting society over what I knew to be true in my own heart. So when we demonize, when we devalue the individual's own consciousness to determine who they are and what they should do in the world, and we put onto them our own ideas from society, we create a reality that sucks. It's limited and it's depressing because we're not allowing each individual to lead their own unique energy. And this is something that is really important in Unicult, is talking about unique energy and talking about the unique incarnation that you have. Your superpower is your unique energy. The fact that we are all born different is the best possible reality. If that wasn't true, we would all be born the same. We are all born different. We all have different interpretations of reality. We all have different understandings of the world. Instead of trying to get everyone to fit into a certain societal box and say, you're delusional, get back in the box, it's a form of control. Calling people delusional is a form of control. And when we're talking now about mental illness, right? I think we have to take the same approach with mental illness as we took earlier in this sermon about talking about delusion. With mental illness, what does it mean to be ill? What does it mean to be mentally ill? I have BPD, I have borderline personality disorder. That's considered a personality disorder. Like, apparently my personality is like wrong, right? And so we have to think about it and we have to say, what in the world are we doing with our words? What are we doing with our social reality about labeling people? If someone has schizophrenia and is able to communicate with interdimensional beings, and we say, you're making it all up in your head, take this drug yourself, get back in the box. Not to say that drugs can't potentially help people. They can give a lot of relief for people who are plagued by darker energies. But the role, I believe, and this is up to you to decide in your own life. Like, don't take everything I'm saying and just be like, oh, I guess I need to do this. Think about it yourself and think about what you need to do. The role for me in my life, from my understanding of my experience, the role for my experience with mental illness, for my experience with my depression and with my borderline personality disorder, was to understand how to heal. And it was about healing. So I still have BPD. I still approach relationships. I still have very strange ways of approaching the world, but it's no longer disordered. It's just a part of who I am, and I'm very healthy and I'm very happy. So when we're talking about it, we have to say, does this cause harm? Unicole is weird. Unicole has weird ideas. Unicole is so far out, right? A lot of people look at me, and one person said, it seems like you're just off the wall comedy, because they couldn't comprehend what I'm talking about. It just seems like the brain breaks when it can't understand something, and the reaction is just to laugh. Like, I have no idea what's going on here. That's okay if you're at that point. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to be mean. But you can understand, like, wow, this is something that I don't understand. That's all right. If someone seems like you don't understand them and they're beyond your comprehension, that doesn't mean they're delusional. It doesn't mean they're sick. It doesn't mean they're ill. It might just mean that they're connecting to aspects of reality that you haven't developed the sensitivities for. So if someone has schizophrenia, it's a very, very, very difficult illness. Schizophrenia is extremely difficult. And what I believe schizophrenia is a super thin veil. You can actually experience the spirit realm. You can actually experience demons. You can actually experience angels. Like, you actually have a super thin veil. And the role, I believe, of someone with schizophrenia is to figure out how to protect themselves from the lower energies and figure out how to embrace the higher energies. Because maybe someone's walking around all the time like, I am connected to angels and I feel amazing and I just want to be a good, kind person to everyone. That's really important. It's also about balance, right? I've known some people with schizophrenia who have completely lost themselves in their idea of a higher reality, but then they've been really shitty to the people in their life. Like, oh, well, I'm connected to God and I'm God, so you're all my peons. Like, nope, that's harmful. You're being harmful. That's actually not a good thing to do or be. So when we're talking about delusional realities, again, I bring it back to, is it harmful? Is it harmful to the individual? Is it harmful to the people around them? And if you have someone who has faced their mental illness, who has faced their traumas, who has learned how to protect themselves and set boundaries around themselves so that they are able to not be triggered. For me, it was like I would get triggered emotionally, and then I would be a terror, right? Because my emotions would take over my reality. I learned how to move beyond that through being exposed to like triggers like a million times, and like through fighting to stay conscious through them, and to fighting to maintain. And now I'm at a place where I can be triggered. It still happens. I get a trigger. My emotions take over my body. They take over my vision. They take over. My brain just shuts down and says, they hate you, die, and I'm like, okay. And at this point, I'm able to say, I'm having BPD brain. I'm having a trigger. And I take a moment to think about it. And I take a moment to feel it. And I do what I can to communicate in a loving manner. I'm not going to undermine how much work it's taken for me to get to that point. But I am no longer ill. Do you understand? Like, my mental illness is no longer ill. It's now an aspect of my reality that makes me strong, that makes me unique, that has made me into one of the most loving, kind, and patient people that I've ever seen. Because I faced it head on and I did everything I can to overcome it. This person says, don't romanticize mental illness. It's not cute. It is cute. It's part of my cute personality. It's a bitch. I'm not going to say it's not a bitch. Like, going through severe mental illness, which I have, is a bitch. It's not fun. It's not easy. I don't wish it on anyone. But in facing it and in doing everything you can to heal it, and that means community healing, that means getting other people involved and helping you, and that means having hope, and that means working toward figuring out a way so that you are not harming people. That's how you heal mental illness. How do you get to a point where you're not harming yourself with your thoughts? How do you get to a point where demons aren't harming you? How do you get to a point where your actions aren't harming other people? That's how you heal mental illness. And then what are you left with? You're left with an amazingly beautiful, unique person who has undergone the fires of challenge and who has risen into a state of unconditional love and strength through facing these things that society doesn't believe we can face. Your journey isn't my journey. I can only speak from my own experience. I can only speak from my own life and my own understanding of reality. If you have beliefs, if you have a reality that says, I'll never be better, I've got to medicate myself for life, I can never overcome this, I'm just somebody who harms people, that's fine. That's fine. That's your reality. I'm not here to tell you it's wrong. I'm here to tell you my experience was that I worked my fucking ass off at being a good person because I have so much empathy that I feel when I hurt other people, and it's not cool. I don't like it. And I was hurting a lot of people, and I was hurting myself. And I don't anymore. I literally don't. Obviously, you run into things where you've got miscommunications and things. But for the most part, I think everyone in my life is just absolutely over the moon to have me in their life. Just so happy. Like, I get text messages from all my friends, like, I'm so happy you're in my life. So I believe that that's possible for everyone. I do. And if you don't believe it's possible for you, you don't need to. I'm just a crazy person on the internet. Turn it off. Go somewhere else. I do think it's a huge thing. Community healing is really important to emphasize, because when we talk about healing things like so severe as mental illness, this is not an individual thing you can heal. I could not have healed my experience without having support, like unconditional love and support and patience from people. Like, dealing with me while I was on that journey was horrible and was not easy. And every single person I was close to, from the time that I was a teenager until relatively recently, like a few years ago, was a freaking nightmare for them too. And all of the patience and love and support that each of those people gave me was not for nothing, And I'm not saying if you're in a relationship with someone who's like mistreating you and they're on their healing journey or they're not, don't be afraid to set your boundaries, And a lot of people in my life have set their boundaries, and it hurt me, but also that was good because they needed to do that. Don't be afraid to set your boundaries, but do help out when you can. And that helping out is validating people's reality. There are aspects. So let's talk about, I want to keep talking about the ways that people can be delusional, because I have experiences in my consciousness which could be determined delusional, right? Like, we can talk about my dream experience with Elon Musk, right? Like, I literally had these series of dreams over the course of a year and a half where I was dreaming about Elon Musk, like the billionaire, like the world's fourth richest person in the world, and we had a relationship. So first of all, they were dreams, okay? Like, I wasn't, how do I control all my dreams? No. Second of all, was I influencing those dreams from my own conscious state? Yeah. I'm not going to say like, whoops, how did this happen? Like, I definitely sought this out. So I have to enter this territory from an aware perspective. When I'm dreaming about someone, and you know what, being in the public spotlight really helps with this, because I get emails sometimes of people being like, oh, wow, last night was so amazing. Thanks for sharing that dream experience with me. And it's like kind of like weird and sexual and like creepy. I'm like, I don't know you. I didn't have a conscious dream with you. And it's like, it can be pretty off-putting to have a stranger talking about an intimate experience that they shared with you and they think you're conscious of. So that really helps me as a quote-unquote delusional person ground a little bit and be like, okay, so not all dream experiences, not all conscious dream experiences are shared. And I had to take a bigger picture of it and say, okay, here's the reality. I don't know this person. This person doesn't know me. And I'm having an experience in the dream realm, which is more than anything else a reflection of my own consciousness, right? This is like what I have experienced is maybe a projection. And this is where it's like, when you have these delusional experiences, right? When you have these experiences which are not provable, like, I can't just like text Elon and be like, hey, did you have a dream about me last night? Like, that's not That's not in my reality because it's probably not happening. So what I can do is I can say, okay, so this is my experience. First of all, validated. Yes, this is my experience. This is absolutely my experience. Like, I had this series of dreams. That's true. I also have my own thoughts about Elon. I have my own understanding of him. I think of him as a certain way of being. But I also think that that is probably predicated on my own interpretation of reality, and I don't actually know him as a person. Okay, so I can look at it like that, and I can have that grounded approach. I'm creating this. He doesn't validate it. Ground yourself in that first, okay? Then from there, you can start to think, what could be possible? I could be connecting to his higher self. I could be having conscious dreams with him, but, you know, remember, stay grounded. That's probably not true. And, you know, and then the thing is, sometimes my brain will have even more dramatic ideas that I feel are real, and I can't necessarily prove it. For instance, I had these experiences a couple years ago where I felt like the CIA was using telepathy technology on me, right? I felt like I was having telepathic experiences with the CIA. And I was like, that's really weird. And I didn't like that experience because I was like, that makes me feel crazy. Is that delusional? I don't know. Would the CIA ever admit doing that? No. So I'm stuck. I'm in a place where I have to say, okay, ground yourself. Maybe that's just your own conscious understanding of the world. Maybe I just, like, on some level of me wishes that the CIA would want to test telepathy technology on me, and that's like part of my like fun experience of my conscious life. What could potentially be happening? Well, maybe there is a telepathy technology. There's a lot of amazing technologies out there that we don't have access to. Would they be testing it on me? Maybe. How do I ground myself in this? How do I protect myself? How do I make sure that I'm not harming myself with my beliefs? How can my beliefs lead to a greater sense of protection and safety? So I'm somebody who has an expansive consciousness. I'm somebody who is inclined to believe a lot. And the reason why that's a good thing is because as you expand your consciousness, we actually change reality. If you are someone who says, you can't quit your job and follow your dreams, you have to work all the time, guess what you're going to do? You're going to work all the time and you're never going to take a risk. If you're somebody who says, I believe you expand your consciousness beyond that limitation and you say, I believe I can go live my dreams and I believe I can figure it out, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go do that. So when you expand your consciousness, you change reality, you change the potential, you change what could potentially be happening in the world. When you look at people who change the world, it's because they believe that they can. They have the knowledge inside of them that they believe, I can do this, and they go and they do it. And maybe they still, they get knocked down and they get up again, but that belief is what drives them forward. So that's true in these interdimensional realms as well. Again, the universe is not physical. It's only partly physical, and it's conscious. Look at your own life. Your body is a physical entity. How much of your experience of life is physical? The rest is your relationships, your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas. All these unphysical, non-physical realities. So we can take ourselves as a microcosm, we can look at ourselves as an example of the universe experiencing itself, and we can see that the universe is just like that. There's a lot of non-physical experiences in the universe, and there's only a small example of physicality. So when we expand our consciousness to understand these things, and we expand our consciousness to feel and believe that the universe is unlimited and that we could potentially be tapping into conscious realms, we expand our consciousness, we actually start developing third eye visions, we actually start developing clairaudience, we actually start developing clairvoyance, we actually start developing real telepathy, and these things are validated as you go down this journey. It's not delusional, it's actually, you can validate it. But it requires staying grounded, and it requires a dual approach of being grounded and of expanding your consciousness. And remember that if it's harmful, if it's harming you, that you should set up protection. And Adam brings up a great point. Thank you, Adam. It's good to acknowledge that though it may have not been done to you, The fact that you perceived it could lead you to understanding things. So when you experience something, right? Like, let's say you're in a room and you mishear your partner, and your partner, you mishear your partner and says, I hate you. And you're like, wow, that's rude. And then you go about your whole day feeling like shit because you thought that they said that they hate you. And then you find out later that they didn't say that. You know, maybe you had a video and they actually said, I love you. Your experience was still real to you, right? It might not have been real to him or your partner. It might not have been real to physical reality, the camera that recorded it, but your experience triggered an emotional reaction and an internal experience. So even if something is delusional, even if something doesn't delusional in the sense that it doesn't match up with other people's experiences, you know, maybe you feel like you're connecting to Drew Barrymore, and you feel like you're having telepathy with Drew Barrymore, maybe there's a demon that's pretending to be Drew Barrymore. That could be real too. So maybe you're actually connecting with an energy that isn't actually that energy, but it doesn't change your experience and the feelings that you have from that experience. So when we're approaching people who are like what we consider highly delusional, people like who have schizophrenia, right, from our societal standpoint, we have to first validate their experiences. Wow, it must be really scary to have voices in your head. It must be really scary to be interacting with all these energies. It must be really scary to have no one believe you, because that's their reality. It may be delusional to you, but it's their reality. Okay. I think that's it. How do you make it feel safe to be experimented on by the government? I feel protected. I feel powerful. I feel unafraid personally. I tried to kill myself, so I'm not afraid of death. And I know that whatever they do to me only hurts themselves if they're trying to hurt me. I mean, these are all beliefs that I have around this to feel safe, feeling like the government is experimenting on me, right? Maybe they're true, maybe they're not, but they make me feel good. It's part of my reality. I believe that in their experimentations, my telepathic powers have actually only gotten stronger. So I believe that it benefited me. And I also believe that any government agent who is tasked with spying on me is benefited, right? Like they become enlightened. Because if you pay attention to me for long enough, I'm channeling truth. I'm channeling authenticity. If you pay attention to me for long enough, you become enlightened. So even the most like decrepit NSA agents, if they spend enough time watching my content, they will inevitably wake up. So those are my beliefs that help me deal with that reality, right? Like that reality that's in my head. Maybe it's not true. Maybe the government doesn't give a fuck about me. Who knows? I can't prove it. I can't disprove it. But I've worked hard to create a reality, an understanding, a version of reality where I don't feel afraid and it doesn't negatively affect me. I just laugh. I say, okay, enjoy the show. Good luck. Sending love. Love and light. Ooh, the movie was about MK Ultra. That's scary. Okay, sending love, Uni bless. We'll see you next week. Let's do a closing prayer. I always forget to do this. Spirit of Uni, we call you into this chat today to bless everybody with the, I don't know why the volume is low on the iPad. We call you into this chat room to bless all the people who are watching. We pray for all the people to be grounded in their experiences of the world, and we send love to all the people who have different experiences of the world than we have, and we pray to open up our minds and our understanding and our love for unconditional love for all people and for all the value and unique energy that they bring to us and to the world. Uni bless.